Hello everyone, my name is Gus. I'm the co-host of Dive Talk and also a certified rebreather cave diver and a scuba instructor. Someone sent me a suggestion to our email address, which is, by the way, info@divetalkmedia.com. So info@divetalkmedia.com. If you have any requests or any questions that I can answer for you here in our YouTube channel, I'm happy to do so. So one of our listeners to the podcast, sent a suggestion for me to react to this video on YouTube called the 7 most dangerous underwater caves in the world or something like that. I actually haven't seen it yet, so I'm going to be reacting to this live. Obviously, I assume I haven't been to all these caves. Hopefully, I've been to some of them. I'm pretty sure Eagle's Nest, for example, will be on the list, but I wonder what else is in there. So I'll be reacting to it live and give you some commentary and, if there's anything else to add. If it was because it was a suggestion to our email address, I assume it was another one of those videos by non-divers to essentially for clickbait. They want to get thousands and thousands and thousands of views, so they have to add these, titles like the most dangerous whatever in the world, and then people click on them and they just do their best to, kind of explain why these caves are dangerous, but they're not really cave divers. So I wanted to react to it. So I'll be looking for, I guess signs of whether the person narrating this video is a diver or not. So if they say things like oxygen tank instead of an air tank, or if they say flippers, that is a dead giveaway, or if they say, stuff about, like, if they miss, really simple stuff like, oh, there's silt in the cave. Yeah, almost every single cave has silt in it. There's nothing special about that. I'll be looking for things like that to determine if this person was or is an actual diver or not. So let's get started. And again, I'll give you some input as we go through it. All right, let's hit play.
It takes a brave soul to strap on a pair of flippers.
Flippers. 3 seconds into the video, he already said flippers. So you know where this is going. I already know where this is going. It's 8 minutes long, so let's keep watching.
And leap into the watery unknown. And it takes a much braver soul to explore some of the caves that are lurking below. Cave diving is one of the most dangerous sports in the world.
Wow. I like how they say that. It's one of the most dangerous sports in the world, and I'm pretty sure a lot more people die of a lot of other things. And, one of the interesting things about it, and I covered this on my last video about reacting to the dangerous truth of Jacob's Well, is that most of the fatalities in caves are from non-cave divers, are from non-certified cave divers. There are regular divers and instructors like myself that say, oh, look, I'm going to go into the cave and I'm an instructor already. I know what I'm doing. You don't know what you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing until I was certified as a cave diver. So, one of the things I tell all my fellow dive instructors is just because you're an instructor doesn't mean anything when it comes to cave diving. So, you just have to be certified. Now, do actual certified cave divers die in caves? Absolutely. There's registered deaths in the past. At Eagle's Nest, for example, which I mentioned earlier, there were 2 certified cave divers, very experienced divers that died there. No one really knows what happened. It seems like they got caught up in a restriction or something. But they were very prepared. Like, I read the accident report, and I mean, they had DPVs. They had stage bottles along the way. They had prepared for the dive, and still they didn't make it. So there's always a risk. But I would say out of the fatalities in caves, globally every year, I would have to assume that 90% or more, if not 99%, are from people that are not cave certified. Some deaths happen to cave explorers, which I have no intention in becoming, by the way. Cave explorers are the people that go into caves that no one has ever been in. No human has ever been in there. And, those are the caves that have a higher risk of collapsing on top and things like that. I know people personally that have been in caves that have collapsed, but they managed to get out. But there's also some brilliant, by the way, explorers that have died exploring new caves. I only go to caves that have been explored, that tons of people have been in them. They have lines in them. I love cave diving, but not cave exploring. Will I ever become a cave explorer? Probably not, but you know, I tip my hat to those who are explorers. So dangerous sport. I think there's a lot more people that dive doing regular scuba diving, which is a safe sport, by the way, than cave diving. But let's just keep going.
Here are 7 of the most dangerous underwater caves.
What lurks below?
Number 7. Devil's Cave, Florida. A submerged labyrinth 50 miles from Gainesville, Florida.
Okay, Devil's Cave. There's no such thing as Devil's Cave. It's an actual, it's called the Devil's System, right? It is many caves that are interconnected, miles and miles worth of caves. By the way, I want to give this person props for actually using, you know, it's not exactly right. I'll talk about this, for actually using real footage or pictures from real dive sites, right? The previous video that we made about Jacob's Well, they were using like movie footage, which makes no sense. With so many videos and pictures about the actual dive sites, makes no sense to use movies, but I don't know why they did that. Maybe they were lazy and didn't want to Google or search for the actual pictures of the site. This person actually searched for pictures of the site, but because the system is so massive, the pictures that he's using is actually from Devil's Den, which is not a cave at all. It's actually a super shallow and super fun dive for brand new students. Experienced divers probably are not going to go to Devil's Den just because there's not a whole lot to do. Like I mean, the site is pretty impressive. It's a sinkhole that caves into the ground, and you go down the stairs, and you can see in this picture, you can kind of see the stairs going down into the water. There's several platforms, and you essentially put on your gear and go in. You can see even kids with no gear right here. Like, they're just snorkeling and swimming around, having fun. It's a pretty cool site for brand new divers and even non-divers that they can go in. There is not dangerous at all. I don't know if anyone ever has died at Devil's Den because it's so shallow. I think the deepest you can go maybe is like 45 feet, maybe, which is 15 meters. So it's just not a challenging site whatsoever. Super fun for beginners, but it's not a cave.
Devil's Caves is an intricate system of tunnels and caverns with very pleasant sounding names such as Little Devil, Devil's Eye, and the Devil's Ear.
All right, so Little Devil, Devil's Eye, Devil's Ear, they're actually features of the cave, and they allow us to enter the system. I've personally have entered the Devil's system at Genie Springs, which is a place in Florida, and the two main entries to the cave system are Devil's Eye and Devil's Ear, which are pretty close to each other. I would say they are, 20 to 30 feet close to each other, and they're literally just holes in the ground, or they're on the water, but they're holes. You go in, and then you dive into the cave. I personally enjoy the Devil's Ear even more than Devil's Eye. Devil's Eye is the one that most people use because it's the one that is bigger. There's more potential to tie up lines and things like that. And if you're training to become a cave diver, probably every single dive that you'll make will be through the Devil's Eye. That is the kind of the common entrance. The Devil's Ear is my favorite because number one is smaller. The entrance is smaller, which means the flow of water trying to push you out is bigger. So it's exhilarating, but at the same time, if you get scared easily, you probably are not going to like it at all. Like the first time I did it, I wasn't a big fan, but now I actually really love it. And the other thing is, because of how the systems meet, which is the clear water from the spring and the water from the river, which is murky, when you look up, and what I'll do is I'll put a picture right here on the screen so you can see what it looks like from the bottom. And this picture is from my co-host in Dive Talk, Woody, who is coming down the Devil's Ear. The combination of the clear water of the spring and the murky water of the river make this like super cool fiery background. So one of the things I like to the most, and all divers that go down the Devil's Ear, is as you go down, there's like a really huge, like, I guess, tree trunk that is right in the middle of the hole that you can use to protect yourself from the flow. But then I like to look up. And look at the opening because all of that mix of waters and stuff looks amazing. Like, it looks Photoshop. I mean, look at this picture. It has no Photoshop whatsoever in it, but it looks epic, right? So I actually like it, but all of these are entrances. Now, he's talking about him because obviously clickbait him because he wants to make it sound scary, like Devil's Eye. Who's going into the Devil's Eye? I've done that many times, and it's actually awesome. It's super fun.
This popular site is
Devil's
known
Den.
for its warm waters and incredible rock formations, as well as its swirling underwater vortexes that can knock even experienced divers off their game and cause confusion and paranoia.
All right. Confusion and paranoia. That's ridiculous. It is true that there is kind of not vortexes, but there are sections in the cave where the flow is greater, and you have to hang on. Like if you don't hang on, you get pushed. And you know, it can it cause confusion? I mean, I don't know. If you flip upside down and you don't hang on to the rock, like there's a part called the gallery, which is a big opening, right? That you kind of have to know how to navigate that. You have to stay close to the ceiling, so the rocks coming up from the ceiling protects you against the flow. Like if you kind of lose your grip, and I use gloves in this section, although many divers don't, but I like to use glove in this section because I don't want to slip. You know, could you get confused and whatnot? Maybe. I've never seen anyone get confused. I've never gotten confused myself. But paranoia, what I don't even know what that means. You get what, paranoid that, oh my God, I'm gonna die in this cave. Let me get out. I've seen people that are trying to get in and they realize that there's no joke, that there's flow and the cave's trying to keep you out. It's not trying to swallow you in. And they essentially say, you know what, this is not for me. Let me rethink about my life choices. And they go out and they think about it. They talk a little more and they try again and then they make it. You know, it's one of those things that is a challenging the first time because you've never experienced that, but then after that you get used to it.
Deep inside the arteries of the cave, Devil's Cave is stunning and unpredictable, a display of raw power of nature, and it has been responsible for condemning a few unlucky to their watery deaths. Number 6. Jacob's Well, Texas.
All right,
Jacob's Well might look like your run-off-the-mill swim.
We already talked about Jacob's Well in the previous video, so I'm kind of going to pass by this one
But our
really quick.
pick for number 6 shows that first impressions can be deceiving. Under the surface, Jacob's Well opens up to chambers upon chambers,
Four
each
chambers.
a little bit trickier and narrower than the last. Underwater claustrophobia aside, the tiny
I don't think this is Jacob's Well, by the way. It looks pretty cool, though. It looks like a cenote, actually.
caves and passageways are lined with silt. When kicked up, the debris
Again, talking about silt. Every cave, even safe caves, have silt. I don't know what the big deal is
clouds
about
the
it.
water and makes escaping difficult and sometimes even futile. Divers who find themselves trapped in the murk tend to panic, swallowing up gasps of precious air as they frantically try to flee the cave. Often, it's in vain. Jacob's Well has claimed the lives of 8 souls. Number 5. Blue Hole, Belize. Belize's Blue Hole may just be the most photogenic and gorgeous sinkhole on the planet.
Looks awesome.
It punctures the Caribbean seabed in a perfectly round, 124-meter deep hole.
Okay, so I've never been to Blue Hole in Belize. I hope I get to go one day. I'm not sure if the Blue Hole is a cave or not. I didn't know what he has on the list, so I didn't research ahead of time. Because in order for it to qualify as a cave and not a cavern, you cannot have light from the outside. So if you're inside the hole, even if it's deep, 124 meters deep, assuming that's right, you know, the light in the middle of the day should reach pretty deep. I don't know if it's going to go all the way to 124 meters. I've never been that deep. Deepest I've been is around 61 or 62 meters. So twice as much as that. I don't know how much light will make it there. But, you know, there's two things that we're looking for in order to qualify something as a cave. Number one is an overhead environment. You cannot just go up to the surface. And number two, is there any natural light that is seeping through that I can see, right? Because caverns that have a large opening, you may be on an overhead environment, but there's plenty of light coming through, making it safe. And also the size. Like there's a place in Florida, for example, called Blue Grotto, which I've seen also videos of it in YouTube. People is like, we were in an air bell deep inside a cave in Florida, and they're just a Blue Grotto, which is not a cave, it's a cavern. And number two, the air bell is a, like, I don't know, 30 feet. It's not deep at all and not deep inside a cave. It's just all clickbait again. But the point is, we're looking for, again, overhead environment, no light from the outside. The hole is so massive that I would find it difficult that there are places inside of it where light doesn't reach, but I've never been there, so I don't know.
Crammed with exotic marine life and coral formations, ripe for the exploring, and is a draw for divers around the world. The only problem is that this deep paradise has become a nightmare for unlucky divers who descend too quickly and find themselves in the maddening grasp of nitrogen narcosis.
Maddening gasp of nitrogen narcosis. Look at that skull. Okay, so let's talk about nitrogen narcosis super quick. I don't want this to become a class or a super technical thing, but nitrogen narcosis happens when the intake of nitrogen that you have at depth, which starts around 80 feet or so, becomes narcotic, essentially. And people say it feels like being drunk, like when you drink some alcohol. And just like alcohol, narcosis affects people differently. Some people start feeling it at 60 feet, which is pretty shallow. Some people feel it super bad, like you're on 100 feet and you feel like you've had, a lot to drink. I personally have never felt it. However, they say that narcosis, the first sign of narcosis is that you deny that you felt it, because you're, I guess, drunk enough that you're like, I'm not drunk, right? Maybe that's true. Maybe I have felt it, but I've never felt like I'm out of my game or I'm not thinking straight. Maybe I've been, narked before, and the deepest I've been on air, I think it was around 140 feet or so, 145. And, I was already normoxic trimix, and I was in my rebreather on a regular open circuit tank, which is a regular tank of air, which is what most people do. I think the deepest I've been is 135, and I didn't feel narked at that point. But once again, the first symptom of getting narked is that you deny that you're narked. So who knows? But it's never been bad for me. And the cool thing about nitrogen narcosis is that although you feel narked, you feel drunk, however you want to put it, it goes away immediately as you go up. So you just ascend, right? You go a little bit shallower and it goes away, which is not the case when you feel like that in alcohol. You can't make it go away. You can eat whatever you want. You can drink whatever you want, go to sleep, wake up feeling awful. That's typically the way it works when you're drunk. With narcosis, that's not the case. You may feel narc. You start going up. Oh, I'm not narc anymore. It's awesome.
The scourge of divers and the cause of many fatalities underwater. Since the walls of the blue hole are solid for 30 meters, novice and even experienced divers can accidentally go too far, to the point of no return.
See, like I'm looking at this picture, and again, I don't know if this is from the actual blue hole, and I can see that there's an overhead environment, right? He's under the ceiling of this cavern or whatever it is, but there's plenty of light, right? This is in no way, shape, or form a cave. No chance. This is a cavern, obviously. At best, I don't know how deep this hole is where you can go into the overhead environment, but it's a cavern, and caverns are cool. Like, I have nothing against caverns, but I don't know why this is on the list if it's supposed to be a list for caves. I don't know.
Nitrogen narcosis comes with the host of terrifying symptoms like hallucinations, anxiety, and the feeling of extreme intoxication.
I mean, if you have a few beers and you start having hallucinations and anxiety and all of that, then maybe that can happen to you. I have never ever, talked to anyone that had nitrogen narcosis and they were like, oh, I was imagining, sirens or whatever, mermaids down there, or I've never seen it that bad. So I don't know.
When you need to keep your wits about and make life or death decisions, a strong bout of nitrogen narcosis can and does finish off thrill seekers and divers. Number 4, Eagle's Nest Sinkhole, Florida.
We knew it was happening.
For our number 4 pick, we head back to the sunshine state of Florida and check out the Eagle's Nest
That is actually a picture of Eagle's Nest. So this is true. I've been there.
Sinkhole, a whopping 315.
Okay, this is dumb. It's not 350 meters deep. That would be like 1,000 feet. It's actually 315 feet deep. So about 100 meters, maybe less than 100. Right around 100 meters deep. So that's a mistake. Probably, while he was taking notes or whatever, but it's still a pretty deep cave. 100 meters. It's a lot.
Meter deep dive site where explorers can come face to face with their old nemesis, nitrogen.
This is funny. Like, this picture reminds me of the cavern at Ginny Springs, which is in the Devil System. So this is definitely not Eagle's Nest. Like I said, I've been there. This is not it. But this looks like the opening at Ginny, which is where the Devil System is. And there's a section that has a cavern, no entry to the cave, where regular divers like this person right here on the picture can go in with lights and everything. You can go into the cavern. It's an overhead environment, but again, there's plenty of light coming through. You can go in there. Even free divers go in. Like, they just take a breath and go into the cavern, and pretty deep. Like, some of those guys are legit, but I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go overhead without a tank, but these guys go in there and they do pretty good.
Narcosis once again. The deeper a dive, the more likely nitrogen narcosis will set in. So some divers use a blend of different gases called trimix.
Oh my god, what? Trimix? What is trimix? I have no idea. Well, again, he's not a diver, so it's actually called trimix, and trimix is essentially we just take helium and we add them into our tanks. So as I talked about in the previous video, the scuba tanks are not oxygen tanks. They actually have oxygen and nitrogen, which is the air we breathe. The air we breathe has about 21% oxygen and 79% nitrogen. That's the air that we breathe out on the surface. And because the deeper you go, there's a few laws that you learn in, during your scuba class. To keep it simple, if you're going deeper than 130 feet, you want to add helium to your tank so you can breathe the gas down at the bottom. That's pretty much it. One example is the gas that I used when I went to Eagle's Nest was 1640, 16% oxygen, 40% helium, and the rest of it was nitrogen. Helium is great because it doesn't affect, it doesn't affect you other than makes your voice sounds weird. But we call that gas trimix because it's helium, oxygen, and nitrogen.
To offset the effects. There is no surefire way to stave off the murderous underwater sickness, though, as Eagle's Nest Sinkhole proves. Even experienced divers have been sentenced to the depths here.
It's not different gases, by the way. I'm talking about like we invented a gas. We're just adding helium.
Problem is the sheer extent of the dive. Only a slight distraction could cause a diver to easily forget to check their air consumption, and by the time they realize they're at a critical level, it's far too late.
By the way, this doesn't happen often, especially for people that dive at Eagle's Nest, which are very experienced divers. We plan our dives. There's an app for that. I use an app called IDECO Pro. And on this app, you essentially put in the gases that you'll be breathing, how deep you're going to be going and for how long. And the app tells you exactly how much gas you need to bring with you. It tells you need 2 tanks of this size or 1 tank of that, whatever it is. The app literally tells you what to bring so you can complete that dive. So if you run out of air, that means that you totally violated your plan, meaning you went deeper than you thought, you went longer than you thought, or whatever. Because if you stick to your depth and if you stick to your time, you don't even have to look at your air. I mean, you will, because that's, you want to keep an eye on your air, but you technically don't have to look at it. Like if your SPG or your computer fails to communicate and you're within your parameters, meaning depth and time, you should have plenty of air because you plan for it. You use an application for it that tells you exactly how much air to bring and how long to stay down for.
Number 3, Cenote Esqueleto, the Temple of Doom, Mexico.
Actually, I've heard about this. I haven't been there, but the Temple of Doom is actually called Cenote Calavera, which stands for skull. Esqueleto is actually the Spanish word for like the whole human body, like the bones, like the whole body, not just the skull, the whole body. So I think he made a mistake on this one. I think it's called Cenote Calavera. instead of Esqueleto. So that's and I'm reading that from the Temple of Doom. That's the name that I've heard. But other than that, this is actually a shallow one. I think this is 45 feet deep. I don't know what he's.
What's in a name? Well, when it's a snarl of sunken tunnels affectionately referred to the Temple of Doom, there's a lot. Labyrinth doesn't begin to cover it. Divers are strongly advised to keep out of the cavern's mazy and inky passageways, and to stick only to well-lit areas to avoid getting lost and perishing in the dark.
What is he talking about, well-lit areas? I mean, well-lit areas by what? By light from the outside? Because that wouldn't make it a cave. And obviously this picture is from a cave, but with a flashlight. So is he talking about maybe divers should bring flashlights? I mean, that's kind of common sense. I'm not following. These formations are cool, though.
Alone, as has been the fate of many visitors to the Temple of Doom. Divers get lost and are never seen again once forgotten in the tunnels. The sheer intricacy of the Temple of Doom system of chambers makes exploring here a hard no for novices and a strict proceed with caution for experts.
That doesn't look like a cenote, that last picture, by the way. That looked like a different cave or a different place.
If you try your hand at our number 3 pick for the most dangerous sunken caves, stick with the sunlit spots. You'll thank us. Number 2, the Shaft Sinkhole, Australia. Coming in at number 2 is arguably the most treacherous cave diving site in the world. Australia's Shaft Sinkhole has a trifecta of terrifying cave challenges wrapped up into one scary dive that many adventurers never return from. The sinkhole is deep.
I think this place has only killed 2 people, by the way. I remember reading about this when I was researching places to go and places to dive. It is pretty interesting to get in it. You have to kind of like rappel through a little hole, but once you're inside, the cave is pretty massive and it's pretty deep. I think it's not as deep as Eagle's Nest, but it's about 200 and something feet. So definitely try-mix territory. It looked pretty massive though. Nothing terrifying or claustrophobic. It was just more about getting there is interesting, getting through that little hole. You cannot have all your gear on. You have to like go down and then your gear comes down, or whatever, send your gear down and then you go down and then put it all in the water and then go diving. But it didn't look scary to me.
Tempting nitrogen narcosis to grab some unlucky victims. It's also full of silt and debris, causing a murky slur to the fill of minuscule passageways and makes for poor navigation. Finally, the Shaft Sinkhole is full of undersized...
So you can see the opening is just that little hole down there, and you have to go down it, and you cannot have all your gear on. You can see these people are going in, and all their gear is on the grass.
Openings, including the famous entrance to the cave system, where divers must actually remove their equipment to squeeze in. This cave is not for the claustrophobic or faint of heart, but for those brave enough to traverse her depths. The payout is huge. The Shaft Sinkhole is full of incredible rock formations and otherworldly natural elements. Just make sure you have enough air to pinch yourself back through the tiny entrance. Getting lost or running out of air is the #1 cause of deaths in these caverns.
In all caverns and caves, getting lost and running out of air is the reason why people die. But you learn all those things during your cave diving training. The cave diving training class is by far the most difficult class I've ever had. If you, for example, if you're not a diver, you can go from knowing 0 things about diving to being a certified diver within 3 days. Maybe 4 days or something like that. And the cave diving training is 8 days long. So it's more than twice as long as the open water diver. And again, they don't accept just anyone to cave diving training. You have to be an experienced diver. For me, as a rebreather cave diver, I had to put in 100 dives on my rebreather alone just to qualify to take the class. And once you take the class, you're only guaranteed to go through the class, but you're not guaranteed to pass. You actually have to earn that certification. An instructor has to say, look, this is a person that I would trust, to go diving inside a cave with. So I've never met anyone that just took that class as a brand new diver and just got certified. That's not a thing. There are minimum requirements for it. And because of that, they only take experienced divers to go that extra level, and it's 8 more days. So after you're an experienced diver and have hundreds of dives, by that point, I think I had something like 350 or 400 dives, 100 of those being on my rebreather, or 100 plus being on the rebreather. You know, by the time I get there, I still spend 8 days learning more skills to learn how to dive in caves, and again, eventually getting certified. So yes, you learn how to not get lost. You learn how to, you know, plan your dive so you don't run out of air. You learn all those things. And by the way, when we plan our dives, we don't plan it like everything is hunky-dory, great dive. We plan it as we're panicking, we're breathing 2.5 times what we normally breathe. You know, everything is going south, and everything happened at the deepest point of the penetration. So you go inside a cave, you're planning to go 1,000 feet or something like that inside the cave. Imagine exactly when you hit 1,000 feet, the worst problem that you can have happens. Now, how do you get out? And we plan for that. We plan to be able to exit safely from the worst possible point at the worst possible time. We plan to make our way out by using, again, technology and application and understanding what is it that we have to do in order to achieve that. You've noticed several times he's talked about silt and being that murky and loose visibility. You learn all of those things in your cave class. As a matter of fact, you learn how to find your line with no visibility, right? So you literally, they cover your eyes and they say, okay, go ahead and find a line, and they spin you up. So the way it works is, and I love this exercise, by the way, your instructor tells you, go ahead and, you know, go blindfold essentially. And essentially what you do is you turn off your lights, which means there's absolutely no light in the cave, totally pitch black. He then picks you up. He spins you up all over the cave, right? And if there's flow, the flow is also pushing you, and you get spun up in all directions. And then he just lets you come down and puts your hand on a rock. Now you're in a random rock with no lights inside a cave. What do? It's called a lost line procedure, right? We do that. We learned that in the class. It's pretty awesome. You tie a line into that rock. You kind of remember the features of the cave, and as you dive into the cave, you start, you know, kind of learning the cave and knowing where the lines are. You have line awareness, is called. And, you know, I understand, like, okay, I know where I am, this feature based on flow, based on where I am, the line should be this way. And then you start searching for it. Once you find it, you tie your line into that and you make an exit. You get out of there because you have no visibility, you know, at all. So this is something you do multiple times during your cave dive training. As a matter of fact, we not only do it like they spin you up, going crazy, whatever, put you in a rock, no lights, you don't know where it is. Now they do it so you're with your body and your body has no air, or you have no air. Now you have to find the line while you're sharing your air with your body, and both of you need to get out of there without being able to see each other or communicate with each other. All of that happens during class because it can happen during a dive as well. So I've been in dives where it was zero visibility, zero. Like we went into a super tiny tunnel with a bunch of silt. No matter how we kicked, the silt just covered and we saw zero, nothing. At some point we're just like, let's turn around. And I was like face to face with my buddy. And he was like, turn around right in my face. I turn around and I exited by okaying the line. It's another thing that you learn in the class. Because the line is on the floor like that, and you're not swimming. I'm just using my cable for this example. You're not swimming with your hand on the line. You're swimming away from it, but you know where it is. And then you okay the line. You put an okay sign, and then you go out of the cave by following the line. You know that the line is going to take you to the exit. And I'm oversimplifying this because you might be watching this and, you know, I don't want to super complicate this thing, but all of those things you learn during cave dive training. And that's why we tell people that are not certified to not go into a cave, because as soon as something goes bad, they have no idea how to react to that. I mean, imagine especially if you're a diver and you're watching this, if you don't know anything I'm talking about, you're inside a cave and you get disoriented and your lights fail and you have no backup. How are you going to find your way out? Zero light. You can't see anything. You drown. That's what you die, and then you're part of a video like this one.
Number 1. Egypt's Blue Hole. What could edge out the Shaft Sinkhole for our top spot on our list? How about a place called Divers Cemetery, where 150 thrill seekers have perished?
By the way, I know about this hole. There's actually a group of people that I I'm going to travel with in 2021 to Chuck Lagoon as part of the, with my rebreather to dive in the wrecks over there. And they're actually just posted a trip to Dahab, or Dahab, I don't know how to say it, in Egypt, where the Blue Hole is located. So I've done some research about it. I've never been there, but as part of that trip, I did some research. So I'm glad it came up because I looked that up heavily. And Diver Cemetery, by the way, is one of those things that the people in Egypt want to get rid of. They're not proud of it. I think Florida is proud of the devil system. They like that: devil's eye, devil's ear, devil's den. They love that stuff. But in Egypt, they're not very, very happy about the nickname. A lot of people have died. Unfortunately, a lot of them free divers as well, because the Blue Hole is pretty deep. I think it goes down to something like 130 or something like that meters. So that's hundreds and hundreds of feet. And the problem is, when you're a brand new diver, when you're a regular open water diver, or even a tech diver is fine. When you go diving, typically they will take you to a place where you can't really go deep, where if you're a regular diver, a place like Molasses Reef, for example, in Key Largo, you go down there and there's a floor, like, the bottom of the ocean is around, 35 feet. So even if you are awful with your trim and your buoyancy and you just go down super deep and slam into the floor of the sea, you're not going to go deeper than 35. It's done to protect divers, right? And most dive sites that you go to, they will have a bottom that is typically, not too far from the limits. So even if you go on a deep dive, like, sometimes when you go diving, they'll have a shallow boat and a deep boat for those of us who want to go into deeper sites. The bottom of the deep sites is often 130 or something like that, something along those lines, 140. So even if you go beyond the 130 feet or 40 meters that you're supposed to get to, you're not going to go much further than that. So they're doing that to protect you. Some other sites are not like that. And you have to have, tremendous discipline and awareness in order to stay out of trouble. One example is the USS Oriskany, which is the largest shipwreck in the world. It's located in Florida off the coast of Pensacola. My favorite wreck in the world. I've been there. It's awesome. The USS Oriskany goes down to about 260 feet, I believe, which is pretty deep. If you want to go all the way to the bottom, of the ocean, essentially where the ship is sitting, right at the bottom. So if you have a limit of 130 feet or 40 meters, you cannot go all the way down to 65 meters. You have to be aware and stay around the areas that are shallow. Now, luckily, the ship, because it's there, you essentially go to the fly tower and you can swim around, in 130 or whatever. Like, even if you venture all the way to the fly deck, which is, the deepest I've been in on air, it was 145 feet, right? So I touched that, and I was in a rebreather, but my diluent was air. I touched the fly deck and went back up. So it's 145, and I did that on purpose. I didn't do it, by mistake. But if someone does that by mistake, they'll probably get to the fly deck and then they'll come up. The problem with the Blue Hole is that it goes for hundreds and hundreds of feet, and it's just dark, right? You're just going down. If you're unaware of your depth, then you can end up super deep. And remember, we already talked about narcosis setting in around 80 feet. So for most people. So imagine if you're all of a sudden 140 or 150, right? The chances that you're narked out of your mind are greater. And I know that there's people out there that have been deeper than that, 200, 300 feet on air. I wouldn't do it, but I assume those people were narked out of their mind as well.
Egypt's Blue Hole is the most lethal dive site in the world. Yuri Lipsky, who met his fate at the bottom of the hole, accidentally filmed his own death.
Very popular video. This one, I've seen it. It has millions and millions of views. I think over 10 million views. And it's this guy, once again, without proper training, went down there super deep, got narked at some point, dropped his regulator. That decision is only made if you're, imagine in terms of being drunk or high, however you want to see it, for you to be underwater and get rid of your regulator, you have to be crazy out of your mind, right, in order to do that.
The video was difficult to watch, especially because Yuri's face is beaming at the beginning. And
the story of this video, by the way, I remember it. This guy showed up at the Blue Hole and said that he wanted to film the arch. There's a famous arch at the Blue Hole that you can swim through, and if you remember the picture, you see the Blue Hole, then there's like a wall, and then there's the ocean. So there's an arch, which is like a tunnel that you can swim through on the hole and come out in the ocean, which is supposed to be pretty cool. I can't wait to do it, by the way. So this guy wanted to film that whole thing, like going down, going through the arch, up in the ocean, but he was on air and inexperienced. And I think I read about this, that someone who owns a dive shop at the Blue Hole in Egypt said, look, let me train you. Let's work together for a few days before you do that. And the guy was like, I'm only here for like a day. I'm going to do it anyway. So he just went solo by himself, like just grab a tank. Let me go. Where's my camera? And he started filming and he died. I mean, what else do you expect?
Blissful ignorance of what lies ahead, and by the end, he's deep in the clutches of nitrogen narcosis, confused and alone in the Blue Hole. So what makes Diver Cemetery so savage? Its dominant feature is an arch and tunnel that connects to the sea, 56 meters below the surface.
Yep. So that's what I was talking about. The arch is supposed to be pretty massive. So it starts at 56 meters, which is already too deep to be on air, but people, they see the light coming through it. It's an arch. It's really cool. I've seen videos of this. It does look pretty cool. So they go down there inexperienced, and now you're in an overhead environment, super deep. By the way, once you're 130, if you're on regular air, your bottom time is 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes before you run into decompression, which requires you to stay underwater, or else you can have decompression sickness and die, or you have to go to a recompression chamber, right? So imagine going even beyond that. That's 5 minutes at 40 meters. The tunnel starts at 56, and that is just the tip of the tunnel. So imagine a regular tunnel. The top of it starts at 56, the bottom at 120 meters, not feet. So 56 meters, 120 at the bottom. If you go into the tunnel and you start looking, oh my God, this is so cool, and now all of a sudden you're 120, you'll be out of air in no time, and there is just no way you can ascend from 300 feet or 100 meters, to the surface safely with no air. That's just not going to happen. And if you try to go for your buddy and get their air, they're probably out or almost out anyway. So this is why it's so dangerous. You can just walk into this site. Nobody's checking whether you're certified or not, normoxic, Trimix, like nothing. It's just like, oh, you want to dive? You want to die today? All right, cool. Go in. And that's why so many people have died here.
56 meters
Look at
deep,
that. That's
almost
a cool tunnel.
twice the recommended depth for scuba diving, and creates the perfect conditions for nitrogen narcosis to...
By the way, I don't know what he means by recommended depth. There's not such thing. There's a max recommended depth for depending on your level of training. So if you're a brand new diver, we recommend that you don't go beyond 60 feet or 20 meters. And if you are, an advanced diver, for example, you have, depending on your agency, if you make it to advanced diver, we recommend 99 or 30 meters. And then once you go your deep diving training, then you can go to 40 or 130 feet. Now, so the recommendation changes depending on your level of training. For me, because I've progressed in my training, I'm a normoxic Trimix diver, my recommended depth is 200 feet or 60 meters. That's currently what I'm certified to do. But later in 2021, in May, hopefully, I get to do my final training, which is called full Trimix, in which I can go to 330 feet or 100 meters plus. I have to plan for it, but that is the deepest you can get certified to. It takes a long time. You can't just do it, or else I will be certified by now. You have to kind of do a lot of deep dives to more than 140 feet on your rebreather to qualify for the 200 training. And once you do the 200 training, which is the one I currently have, I got that in October of 2020. Then I have to do, I believe, 25 dives past 180 feet, so super deep dives, which are not easy to find. That's why I'm kind of stuck. Plus, I've been diving caves a lot. I've been a little lazy on the deep dives and hammering cave diving almost every weekend. So in Florida. So once I do 25 dives that are super deep, then I get to qualify to go to my final training, which is full Trimix, which will be the last training that I have. Beyond that, just a Trimix instructor, but there's no. That's the deepest certification you can get.
set in and torment the diver until they succumb to the depths. Many divers, like Yuri, miss the arch completely and get lost in narcosis-induced fever dream of anxiety and ghostly hallucinations. Missing the arch means near certain death, making Diver Cemetery the spot where you get one shot to diving glory and bragging rights, but run the risk of becoming another sad statistic. From the balmy saltwater depths of Belize's beautiful blue hole to Mexico's murky Temple of Doom and Florida's freshwater Eagle's Nest sinkhole.
Oh my God. Okay, so this picture, okay, so there's several things to unpack here. Number one, most of the things on the list, now that the list is over, are actual caverns. They're not caves. So I'm not really sure why they're on the list to begin with. Second of all, this is not Eagle's Nest. The picture that he had before was Eagle's Nest. I'm not sure why he didn't use the same picture. This is actually a picture of Blue Grotto, which I talked about earlier, where people post videos saying that they were deep in a cave in an air bell or whatever, and it's not true. This site has changed tremendously, though. This is an old picture of a Blue Grotto. Now, I've been there recently, a few months ago. Now they have rails, right? So there's rails all over this thing, so you don't fall. Well, at least, you know, the rail starts here, and it goes around, and it has an opening on this side and an opening on this side. They also have a system right here, and I'm going to give props to Blue Grotto to lower people with disabilities into the water. So if you are disabled, let's say you can move from the waist down or something like that, you can dive at Blue Grotto. They have a completely accommodating facilities for people with disabilities, and they have one of those mechanical arms that would take somebody and lower them into the water. So they did a great job with that. They deserve recognition that they don't often get. This is a great place for training. This is where I got my instructor certification. I did my IE, or instructor evaluation, here. Love this place, great memories. I've done dozens of dives in there at Blue Grotto. So I'm not really sure why he used Eagle's Nest, but I'm glad he put this picture on and messed up so I can talk about it, because they deserve the recognition.
The world is full of incredible sunken caves and caverns to explore. But remember, it's a whole other world down there, and one false move will mean the difference between getting out alive and perishing below.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, well, that's pretty much the end of the video. I mean, it is true. We're going to reiterate the fact that if you're not cave trained, if you're not certified to be a cave diver, don't go into caves. Can you go into overhead environments? Absolutely. And there's actually provisions within the open water training materials and standards that allows brand new divers to go and do swim throughs, right? They go on overhead environments, but there are some limitations, like they have to be 30 feet long. They have to, be able to see the exit on the other side. Depending on your training, your ability to do swim throughs and be in overhead environments will change. But overall, you can absolutely do it safely. Just don't go in caves. That's it. If you want to go in caves, get the training, become a better diver, learn how to do it. I would love to take you in a cave with me. It's awesome. It's epic. And there's nothing scary or dangerous after you learn how to do it safely. So just like everything. I know this was a super long video. There's so much to cover. If you have any suggestions for other videos you want me to break down or talk about, please send us an email at info@divetalkmedia.com, or you can leave a comment below here, or send me a message, however you want to see it. We have a page on Facebook. If you want to like us, give us a like or communicate with us there. We're pretty responsive, and obviously listen to the podcast. Now, if you're not a diver, the podcast is not going to make a whole lot of sense, because we're talking about diving things in there. This channel is more for people that are non-divers as well, to be able to learn more about the diving world. And I hope you get excited and learn how to dive, because it's awesome. It changed my life years ago, and I hope it changes yours. Give us a like, subscribe if you haven't done that yet. And again, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.